Awesome. Okay, cool. Welcome back to the channel, guys. These are these videos we've been doing for the last couple months where, we try and go more into the nitty gritty, not so much what housing's doing, just more, market analysis. I like to get some of my vendors and partners on. Today I got my friend Jordan Shaw, energy consultant. I know solar has been kind of a hot topic lately, and Jordan is pretty much the expert in our area. That's fair to say, yeah.
Yep, that's what they
Okay.
tell me.
Okay, cool. If anybody has questions, throw them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as we go. We got some slides prepared for you today, and we're going to be hitting this pretty hard, looking at what solar looks like for 2026, see if it's worth it, if it's a waste, and everything it has to offer, wins, fails, etc. So before we dive in, Jordan, you want to give us a little bit about your background, who you are, where you cover, and
Yeah,
what you do?
absolutely. So my name is Jordan. I'm with Shaw Energy Consulting. So our team is actually one of the premier solar consulting energy construction, I guess you could say, is more apt for it. Companies in the Temecula Valley region, and actually we're in within Southern California as a whole. So we like to say we're a concierge energy advisor, and really what that means is we take the noise out of the solar search. So my team specifically ranges from Temecula Valley all the way down to San Diego, as well as into the LA area. But we actually do installations across 12 different states. So we have active installations in Hawaii, on the island of Maui. We have partners from Oahu that do the installations, all the way down to Florida, and I've got some active projects within Maryland and Pennsylvania currently, actually. So our team, what we do is we've actually done over 10,000 installations within the region. Now, it's not just solar, it's solar plus battery storage is one of our key drivers right now. And we've delved into some other things such as EV chargers, superchargers, that type of thing, getting very creative. HVAC has come online. We are finding more of like that the solar landscape is becoming just more of an energy management type of really landscape overall. What that really means is it's not enough just to have solar. You have to have solar and storage because of multi-day outages. And you know what? A lot of times it's great to slap panels on the roof, but we're just putting a band-aid on the problem. Let's go take a look at your HVAC while we're at it. So we're getting a little bit more creative and just meeting a need just overall across the area.
Okay, awesome. So I did prepare some slides. I figured we just do this more like kind of conversational rather than, go through and do a full, you know, this is solar because that's more your world.
Sure.
I'll give insight on the real estate side, what I see, but, this is kind of, more to spread information around and, because I was doing some research earlier and most of the stuff is solar waste. Is solar worth it? And what I see for a lot of people, especially looking at like newer construction homes, because it's what 2020, you have to have solar on your house if it's brand new, right?
Yeah, you have to have solar. So according to Title 24 requirements, you have to have a certain amount of solar depending on the load calculations or the square footage. Now, the obvious here is that usually it does not really keep up with the demands of the home. It's kind of like a checkbox for most builders. There's very few builders I've seen that are doing this right. And usually it's our partners that are developers that really just want to add like a luxury like home energy bubble to their projects. So for example, we did a project down in Newport. It was 86 panels, 10 batteries. We're doing a lot of rebuilds within the Palisades. And a lot of those architects and engineers are really wanting to, and developers really want to provide the proper basically solar solution for their homeowners. What I have seen though, and I'll call this out, Justin, is Shawwood down here in Temecula. They're probably one of the few companies that I've seen from a builder's perspective that's actually offering a tangible product when it comes to solar. Because what'll end up happening is you get 6 or 9 panels on the roof, like some of these partners, these builders will do, and that's not keeping up, right? That's not keeping up with the pool. That's not keeping up with an EV. It's not keeping up. Heaven forbid you want to do an ADU, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
You have to keep it. You have to keep up with that. And I think Shawwood and some of the other companies and developers that are within the landscape, they're actually they get it and they want to actually do their homeowners right.
Yeah, and when you're doing a new build, like you said, it's not going to keep up with typically with the demand that's putting on that house. So with the new construction, since we're talking about that, do you ever have people in the process that ask you to come and give a second opinion or maybe start looking at adding panels?
All the time. And what's unfortunate right now is that the builders don't always have a good path forward with adding new panels. Meaning that they'll have some form of like leasing mechanism, or just like, hey, this is cookie cutter. This is the system size you got to go with, right? 6 or 9 or 12 panels. And a lot of the times the demand is at least 24 to 32 panels is the average system size. And I'm saying panels very loosely because that, panel size varies, right? But the idea is just to give you an idea of just kind of like the sizing differential. And people come to me all the time. They're like, hey, I think I need more panels. I'm getting a true up bill. What's going on here? And we have to get creative in those situations for new construction.
Okay. So some of the notes I took, obviously rising electricity rates are rising, grid reliability and power, it's we're seeing that like crazy. With a lot of these mandates, a lot of stuff going electric, especially on the new builds, because they don't have gas going to the homes anymore typically. Can our grid, for California specifically, is the grid even set up to be able to manage that?
That's a very interesting thing that you hit on. The answer is no. We have
Okay.
what we call basically a duck curve when it comes to energy demand. And what has happened in California as being a front runner in the clean energy space is that we have all of this surplus of energy during the day and not enough when it really meets the demand. And that means like from 4 p.m. onwards, this is where time of use kind of came into play, was it costs a lot more money to spin up peaker plants to tap into energy on demand. Now, what we are seeing kind of in the space is you're talking about a grid infrastructure that was built to basically as a show off to for JP Morgan back in the day, right? He really wanted to show off the new electric light bulb that he invested in, and he electrified a block. It was not exactly designed to do what it does today. It's a very intricate and delicate system, and it's an aging infrastructure, which means ultimately it costs a lot of money to keep up with it, to just maintain it. And we have this new thing called AI that's just bridging, like just about to like hit the grid hard. They're building these data centers in like in Texas and different areas around the country where they have to build them next to clean energy sources or some sort of an energy source to keep up, because the problem is one data center rack is equivalent, and this will blow your mind, Justin, 12 to 15 houses worth of energy.
Sorry, repeat that. One
One
rack.
one rack in a data
Okay.
center, one set of servers in a data center, just one. You're walking down an aisle, you turn to the right, just one of them
Mhm.
uses equivalency of 12 to 15 houses worth of energy
Jesus.
in
Uh,
AI.
you may know this. I've never looked it up, but I've heard that one AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever inquiry can use up to the equivalent of the weird thing I heard was 15 bottled water or a pool of bottled water worth of energy. I don't
It
know how you how they factor that, but I mean, it sounds like I guess when you're looking at carbon footprint, that
mhm.
sounds insane.
It's over 10 times the energy of a Google search, because it's cross-checking different varying sources and depending on what level of what you're actually asking it to do.
Mm.
And there's technology now that, I mean, we're live streaming this right now, but there's technology right now that it'll just capture this on demand and say, okay, hey, let's go ahead and transcribe this and clip this into different segments, right, and reels and things for us to, just to kind of digest. But when you go to do like a AI search now, it's cross-checking websites and it's pulling. And I don't know if you noticed, Google has defaulted to Gemini now on their search
Yeah.
engine, basically. To There's always an AI centric component right at the top. So to answer your question, no, it can't keep up with the rate in which we are electrifying things in our world.
So do you think solar? I mean, we're kind of getting off topic here, but I think this is more interesting. Solar for like the full grid, is that the ultimate answer, or do you think it's just kind of a stopgap, in conjunction with, the windmills, the other sources of electricity that we have?
That's a great question. And a lot of people want to go all in on one technology, when in reality, it's probably going to take a blend of technologies to meet the overall energy mix. Now, where solar really comes into play is the fact that how rapid it can actually be deployed. So there's no other technology out there, from plants to hydro to whatever it might be, that you can spin up very, very rapidly and deploy new capacity. That's the word that we use, right? New capacity, new
Okay.
energy capacity. And solar will do this, is the quickest form of being able to do this. The number one downside to it is it only is available during the day. And there's been all these different calculations going, like, what if we covered a certain amount of square miles of the Sahara Desert, or somewhere in Nevada or whatever. And the problem is that you have to get the energy somewhere, and it's the infrastructure that is the big deal. So what really comes down to this is distributed energy generation is going to be key. Solar plus battery, right? And then on the back end of that, you're going to have hydro, and you're going to have other forms of electricity mix that can help keep up with the demand. It's not going to be a one size that fits all, but solar is what's fundamentally stabilizing our grid. Excuse me, and the behind the scenes on that is it's the fastest way to stabilize the grid and grids around the world.
Okay. It makes sense. Yeah, I was gonna go through these, but I
Yeah,
think you're
sure. I
saying
mean, what
what you're
type of
talking about is
questions do you
way
got
more
on them?
interesting. I mean, selfishly, I have a ton of questions on this stuff. It's
Let's go.
you
Let's
know,
go. We wanted to keep it conversational. Let's do it.
yeah. So I think the thing it's I see in China they're doing, or they're planning, right? I think they already started it, because they started a whole new ecosystem from what I saw, was they have those solar fields in the middle of the deserts.
Hmm.
And from them, maybe you were telling me this, but from them, cleaning it and trying to keep the solar panels, fully operational, the water's creating this weird little ecosystem where they're seeing, shrubs and trees and stuff grow that
Hmm.
they don't have record of from, prior to a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see kind of like the heating effect that actually happens when you cover a landscape like that. And this is why I'm
Mhm.
really a proponent on, a solar farm is good in certain situations, but there's a lot of back and forth related to like long-term viability of doing so for agricultural land and other ways you do it. Like we've seen like solar farms that are, I think you're alluding to this, is basically they're elevated, and what happens is you've got cattle and other things grazing underneath. Now it's dual use for the land. Like that works. Where
Mhm.
it becomes problematic is where you're just clearing land to do these huge systems. And when we have a big backlash on like wind farms for the same reason, right? It's like this giant thing that like when it comes down to it, well, that was a lot of steel, and then we have to clean these things and maintain them, and you still have to get the infrastructure. Everything has its pro and its con. And what I like about solar specifically in a residential perspective is a lot of times you can place enough panels of today's technology. I mean, these are 440 to 460 watt panels on a residential home nowadays. You can actually place those on the home, which already exists, because at the end of the day, we don't get a lot of pushback a lot of times for new housing developments, right? We get this
Mhm.
pushback for other aspects of what we try to develop. And if we can dual use, that's how I would say dual use this onto existing homes, well, you now only have a 20 or 30-foot run in a lot of cases from up top down to the electrical panel. There's no real infrastructure, right? And if you can store it on site, boom, done. So you don't have to
Yeah.
build anything net new. And it doesn't, but the value of being able to build something net new at a utility scale, like a lot of these are doing, is the price per kilowatt hour is substantially lower than trying to put it on the roof. And that's just because permitting costs, labor costs, like each one of those houses is its own individual project. Versus when you look at the economies of scale on a huge level like that, you're talking about pennies per kilowatt hour worth of energy, what it costs to actually produce the energy and maintain it. But residential solar isn't quite like that far behind. You're talking about maybe 10 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour on an owned system with battery storage. That's really not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you go through Edison now, I'm not sure what rates are. I know I know just every time I check, it looks like it's a couple pennies more than what it was before. Um,
It's your imagination,
it's yeah,
Justin. What are you talking about? They're not raising rates.
yeah, I know. I'm making it up. I'm getting older and more cynical. But
It's it's 13% October 1st is what they raise the rates.
not fun.
Yeah.
So going back to the solar farms, I think Elon Musk was the one. He propose if we could, allot a corridor big enough in Utah, Colorado, whatever that four
Hmm.
corners there, we could power the whole country.
And that's
Is that
true.
true?
Yeah,
It's true.
it's true.
Is
It's
it
true.
practical though?
Exactly right. That's where it comes into where while you can take X amount of square miles in a corner of Nevada or Utah or something like that, that's just not being used. The fundamental cost that comes in is how do you distribute that energy long term, right? Like just in across the country. What it's meant to represent is we really don't need that much to do a lot. And so
Okay.
there's actually about 130 million homes, and you already know this within the U.S., but 90 million of them are eligible for solar, which means we do have this gap that are not, which means they have to get the energy from some source. And that's where the solar and battery technology in a distributed fashion really reigns. But the utility will still have a function long term, but it's going to be more in like a buy sell, like, hey, Justin, all right, I've got a surplus amount of energy in my battery storage and you need it tonight for whatever reason. Let me go ahead and sell it to you on the grid. And what it does is we've now have a transaction that's happened. The grid facilitated the energy distribution to your house, but I supplied the power. And those are what we
Gotcha.
basically are
So,
calling microgrids.
okay, that's just making electricity into a commodity, more or
You
less.
got it. Yep, and it's already a commodity today, but it's allowing us to basically standardize it for just the average consumer to be able to participate, or what was once the consumer, to participate in that economy. And that day is coming long in the future because we're not all going to use energy at the same time. We're not all going to have the same amount of battery capacity. This is just a natural progression of what's going to have to happen. But you only have about 5% of the entire US residentially has gone solar of those 90 million. It's only
You said
5%.
5%?
You'd think it would be higher, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm biased because I'm in California, but I
Right.
guess I don't know other states' markets.
Hawaii is about 30% penetration of solar. So it has the largest just based on the nature of where it's at.
Do you know what California is?
I have to go look it up, but it was below. I believe it was below 20.
So there's still a lot of
Hmm.
opportunity.
You just feel like it's a lot because the electric rates are continuing to climb. So
Mhm.
the adoption rate's a lot higher. The economics really work. And then you have the new construction mandates, basically, which then basically stimulate. Okay, well, I think it's actually higher than that. But what you forget is you build a new house, you put solar on it, you didn't really move the needle. It's like existing solar, right? Or it's existing homes that are going solar. So like, yeah, you just resurrected something, you put the solar on it, but it didn't. It was a net zero, right?
Okay, I can see. Yeah, they'd have to build like crazy
Hmm.
to keep up, or even I
Yeah.
guess get that number to move. So with like battery storage, and you talking about possibly making electricity a commodity. Is there a day or is there a projection where Edison or any of the electric companies see competition just from regular homeowners?
I mean, well, really, that was what NEM 3 was an attempt to slow the forward progression of something they wanted to control. And they didn't want to really admit that, but they devalued the export of energy by 75%, like 6 to 7 cents per kilowatt hour on average. And if you're unlucky, it's like 2 to 3 cents. Like it's
Yeah.
really low. And so they really incentivized putting the battery storage in place because they wanted that. They wanted the ability to, instead of maintaining a peaker plant, to be able to tap into battery storage that's distributed around the entire grid. And the reason behind this is it's a lot faster for them to say, hey, all right, controller, we've got an energy demand that we need here in the middle of September, right? It's like everybody's coming home. They're going to need this energy. And it's easier for them to initiate basically a mass like push and say, hey, from an alert perspective, say, hey, we're going to need this energy from all of these different batteries. And so what they've done is they've established virtual power plants. And these virtual power plants are starting to take off in other states as well. Texas is adopting this now as well, where it's like they give you about $40 per month per battery that you put on a home. They want to be able to tap into it. And so we have this ability to cash out at that time for battery storage. So because what happens is they can just say, okay, hey, 2-hour event on this day. Would you like to opt in? Great. I'll pay you up to $3 per kilowatt hour. Shoot it into the grid for 2 hours. You're just your power walls or battery, Enphase batteries, whatever you have, Franklin. These batteries are just pumping energy back into the grid. And when they do that, they basically are just going to use it when they actually need it, and then give you compensation, because that's an immediate thing. It immediately discharges. There's no spin up time. It's boom, done. All right, inverter on, and you just hear the power walls. They're just blasting that energy out. So it's a lot faster for them to do that and cleaner for them to do that versus having a peaker plant sitting around doing absolutely nothing all day, and then all of a sudden they've got to spin it up and burn natural gas.
Okay. Makes sense. So it almost like Ubers your house, like, from an energy standpoint.
That's a great way to think about it. Yep, you got it. So you're turning your battery storage into a cash asset.
Yeah, or like Uber will raise their pay for drivers during, like whatever, Coachella or something.
Yep.
It's essentially doing that with a backup battery.
Yep,
Okay.
totally.
Interesting. I'll share the screen again.
I like your slides here too. This is great.
Oh, thank you. Gemini, man. Speaking of Google.
Speaking of AI, I was noticing it. I was like, that looks like it was created. It's really neat.
Yeah, I stumbled on this a couple weeks ago. I was doing some slides, and I had this little tab that said "Beautify." So I
Yep.
just go and just pop everything in. I mean, it still takes time and research time, but it's easier than going through and customizing each template.
Absolutely.
All right, so batteries provide backup power, resiliency, safety, comfort, and continuity. Not every home needs.
This is the biggest thing, man. Right here. Battery
Yeah.
storage and resiliency. That's my conversation every time we're walking in when talking solar. Is the resiliency. Everybody had this notion that solar magically provided power to their house, and when there was no battery storage, they just said, "Oh, I have solar. The grid went down. Why the heck am I? It's middle of the day. Why am I losing this power?"
Yeah.
And this is the number one conversation that I'm having now, is that the resiliency side is the key component. Savings is great. Like, we usually cut somebody's utility bill by up to half with a solar payment, right, under like a PPA, for example, power purchase agreement. However, the resiliency is the key thing. What do you mean? I don't have to lose power for 3 or 4 days like we saw in Winchester this last January. Like, January is coming. Like, that's next month. Like, do you think from the Palisades they're going to make this, and the Eaton fires and all that, Edison's going to make the same mistake twice? I mean, they might, right? But they're going to be shutting down the power left and right when we get a high wind warning. And so resiliency is a key component to every home now. Like, they just want a protected bubble. So when I go in, it's yeah, we already know solar can save us money. Can you back up my house, and how long can I run? Those are the questions that I get.
Yeah, and a lot of people they want to do like homesteading, or they want to be completely self-reliant on their own thing, which hasn't really been an option until batteries, right?
Right. It really hasn't been really an option. What's happened right now is we have one battery that can supply enough energy to start an air conditioner. The amperage outbound has grown that well. So that's like a Powerwall 3 or a Franklin battery. Enphase's new 10C batteries can do this. It's really cool to see, like, okay, I could only have one battery to do what I needed to do. Now, most people, especially when we're sizing projects correctly, and this is something to watch out for, okay? And so this is hey, is it a scam, or like what's going on, right? Is we have to size batteries appropriate to the system size on the roof, because my goal is to capture as much of that energy and store it on premise. And if I've undersized your battery storage, that storage is full by 11 a.m. So I need to make sure that I have enough capacity to support the demands that your house is putting on your energy usage. And so what I have seen time and time again, Justin, is when homeowners get a quote or they get multiple quotes, they're like, "Oh, well, this person's giving me the same number of panels, but they're giving me like one battery." And I'm like, okay, do they understand how this economics work? Do they understand battery sizing? And the reality is, these solar pros, I'm gonna do that in quotation marks, they haven't been around long enough to understand how battery sizing really works. And I train hundreds of solar professionals around the country on this, is that battery sizing is a key component. And I'd rather double down on the size of your battery system, even if you maybe only need a little bit less, you're going to be happier. And what I'm finding is more of these pros will go ahead and they'll put in one battery and say, oh yeah, you've got this giant system, but we put one battery in. And then if they put that under a lease or a PPA, guess what happens?
Yeah,
You're
you're,
not
you're paying
cut.
for that extra.
What?
You're underpowered essentially, right? You're not harnessing, the 20 panels or whatever you have.
You got it, but it's also the fact that you cannot touch it. I can't
So
add
under
backup.
PPA, what do you mean you can't touch it?
I can't touch it. So if you asked me earlier, you're like, hey, so can you add additional capacity, right? Like when somebody
Yeah.
goes, hey, I got a new construction home. Well, the problem is that if there's a battery that's assigned to it and that's not big enough and it's under a PPA or lease, we are not allowed to touch that leased gear, which
Oh, okay.
means I can't tie those two systems together. They have to be logically separated, which is a huge pain, by the way. It's one thing when it's only the solar side. Then I'm like, okay, there's some ways around this. However, the battery storage, the reason behind this is the fact that that leased system is covered under extended warranties, which includes the battery pack. And it comes into play on exactly where the energy is coming from. Is it coming from that array or the new one that I put on the roof? And now I'm trying to bundle these two systems together. It's just a big nightmare. So something to watch out for, in my cautionary tale to anybody that's listening to this, is make sure that the solar and the battery is sized correctly. If they're giving you one battery, chances are you need two. So many of my homeowners are getting like 3 to 4 batteries on the back end of the solar systems because that's the amount of demand they need.
Holy cow.
Hmm.
So on 3 to 4 batteries, how big of a house would that, on average, would that power be necessary for?
Great question. Let me give you an example. So I told you about 24 to 32 panels is an average resi style house. There's homeowners that
Mhm.
I've helped that only needed 16 and one battery, just like the way the math actually worked out. However, when you're going to 24 to 32, you need 2 to 3 batteries, and that's on an average, let's say 2,800 to 3,600 square foot home, give or take. That is not a hard rule because there's many houses that are smaller in maybe the 2000s range on the square footage, but usage is sky high because they have a pool. Maybe they're, like you said, homesteading a little bit more. They have a farm situation. One of my latest customers, they were using about 14 times their square footage, which our average calculation is about 5 in the Inland Empire.
Mhm.
14, and the average
Yeah.
calculation is half that. Um, but the idea behind this is if you need to have 2 to 4 batteries, like where is that magical line? I had a Corona installation that was 52 panels. They had a 400 amp main panel, which is pretty uncommon unless you're in the Temecula Valley area where you know as well as I do, like you get these big residential, these estate homes out in the vineyards. They
Yeah.
traditionally are like 400 amp panels. Well, that needed 4 separate batteries because I needed to split that configuration to back up the entire home on a 400 amp. Each panel kind of has to be treated as its own residential home, essentially. So it's not as one size fits all, but if you're using general guidance, for every 20 to 24 panels on the roof, you probably need about 2 batteries, and those batteries are about 20 to 30 kilowatt hours worth of storage. I use batteries loosely, but it comes down to kilowatt hours of storage.
Okay. And then what are the different size batteries? I've never really looked into that side of it.
It's a good question. Good question. The Enphase 10Cs, for example, are 10 kilowatt hour batteries. SolarEdge makes a battery, and then they're going to be coming out with a modular version of that battery as well, 10 kilowatt hours. The Powerwalls, which are one of the Tesla products that are just the front runner, just in the landscape right now, are 13 and a half kilowatt hours worth of capacity. And the reason behind that is they usually have a reservation. It's actually more like 15, but they don't expose the full amount to you because they have to keep that reserve there. So those are 13 and a half. And then you'll have essentially a Franklin battery, which is 15 kilowatt hours of capacity. And that's something that Franklin likes to tout is when they say, well, we're going against the Powerwall 3. we give you a little bit extra juice and we give you a longer warranty, right? They actually fully expose it because it's the battery chemistry is actually different. So and that's like lithium ion versus lithium iron phosphate, or LFP. So if you're doing like Google searches out there, but those are the system sizes. They're 10 to 15 is the most common sizes.
Yeah. And then batteries have been really, I mean, for the last what 3 4 years, that's kind of been technology that's been evolving. I don't think I really saw it too much before that. Am I off on that?
Yeah, you're right. It's really, really extended about the last 3 to 5 years. We've seen really heavy movement in the battery landscape. To give you a little background on me, I've been in the solar industry for about 9, 10 years at this point. My family went solar in Brunswick, Maryland back in the day under a PPA arrangement, and we did not have battery storage then. I mean, it existed, but it was like you're tying these batteries together, and you have to really want to go off grid, like they were like car batteries, or ones that you would go on a ride lawnmower, and
Yeah.
but the battery technology today, especially with how NEM 3 or net billing has pushed people to adopt it, is the cost of the batteries have dropped by about 35% in the last 18 to 24 months at this point. But the evolution of the technology, especially as EVs have evolved, has really skyrocketed. So we've gone from only like being able to back up under 40 amps of any given circuitry, right? Like the maximum breaker, to 60 amps per battery if we need to, which is huge.
Yeah.
So this evolution of the battery architecture, I mean, what it's done in the last just decade, and let alone the last 3 to 5 years, I'm really excited to see what it's going to do in the next 3 to 5.
So you think, because things progress pretty slowly, as far as technology, then it's like, somebody gets interested or there becomes a demand for it and it hits its stride. Sounds
hmm
like it's kind of really done that the last 18 months. Do you think that keeps going? Like there's a lot more evolution, quicker evolution we're going to see in the next few months, or do you think we're kind of hitting that wall now?
Yeah, no, we're definitely not hitting the wall. I mean, everybody's worried about investing in a technology and then it becoming instantly outdated, right? And the truth is, the solar landscape and battery technology is that just that it's technology, which means as more people adopt it, we're just going to find better and better ways to do it. They're saying there's a technology out there called solid state batteries, where it's like pretty much instantaneous charging of these battery systems. Right now it's a chemical reaction, right? Moving the electrons back and forth between two ends of the battery architecture, so inside the cells. And solid state has a firm like chemistry to it, where it's like it's not. I don't fully understand the full nature of it, but the holy grail is to be able to basically use something that doesn't require the back and forth, and it's instantaneously able to capture the energy as it comes in, or expel it, right, at the same token.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't worry about, hey, okay, or am I going to invest in this big battery architecture and then it can be outdated next year? It doesn't matter, because the size of the batteries that we're putting in, we're sizing them what's needed for the house, right? And
Yeah.
you're not gonna. It's like buying a new car every 3 years. What did you achieve? It still had four wheels and got you from A to B. Yeah. So what did the windows go up and down faster? Like, was it a little accelerated a little
Yeah.
bit better? It had a little more few little features. If you buy a Tesla, it seems to get better over time anyway. Every single month, they're always doing updates to it. So I wouldn't worry about it in that way.
Okay, so with battery technology taking off, has there been a huge advancement in technology on the panel side? Like, say from we're in 2025, even compared to like 2020.
Oh, wow. Just in the last 5 years? Yeah, we've
Yeah.
seen average panel sizes were about 320 watts to 340 watts on a residential scale. Okay, those are different than commercial. The commercial are just bigger panels. But Resi has moved from that 320 to 340 range to being 410 to 440 is the range right now. RAC makes like a panel that is 460 watt, right? So, but the average range is right in, like, most of my clients right now are getting installations in the 430s. Traditionally, we got a few 440s going in right now, but that's just shows you kind of like it's moved up in size by that much. Now,
Yeah.
but here's the thing to understand: The size of the panel also traditionally moves as well, not just from a wattage perspective, but from a physical size. So you can look like 10 years ago, you're like, oh my gosh, we went from 200 and 40-watt panels to these 440s. And really, if you look at it, the panels just got a little bit bigger, but the efficiency did get higher as well. So like you can have 22% plus efficiency panels these days. So yeah, they've just in the last 4 to 5 years, they've gotten really sick looking on black panels, but the efficiency is also skyrocketed as well.
Okay. That's good to know because so that's essentially over the last roughly 5 years about a 30% improvement in abilities,
Yep.
going from like a 320 to 410 roughly.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, and really what I've seen is it's very rare that a homeowner really needs anything greater than a 430-watt panel these days. It's usually just somebody chasing the highest spec because that's what they're used to doing. And they're like, give me the 460s. And you're like, you don't need it. Like
Yeah.
it'd be one thing if you didn't have enough square footage on the roof. That'd be one thing. But when you do, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to go chase the higher wattage. It's going to
Okay.
degrade over time anyway.
With like any technology, you get those nerds out there that want like the better iPhone or the
100%.
the newest stuff. Do you get people like that with solar? I know it's kind of an odd thing.
100%. I have my engineer types. I've got an email just today from somebody that was in the solar space, but he's an electrical engineer. And so, of course, that email just asking questions looks a lot different than just the average homeowner going, this is the first time looking at it. I have no idea, like teach me, like what should I be looking out for? Like, because this is
Yeah,
one panel versus this many batteries, my head's going to explode, right? It's like, yeah, it looks very, very different.
that's funny. Okay, yeah, that's funny. 'Cause I can see it because I nerd out on stuff too. So like I try not to get too deep into it. But when you're
Mhm.
saying those numbers, I'm like, oh, that sounds better. But okay, we can go into cost and tax credits. I know you've been in the office a lot, or talking about like some of the tax credits that are going away, possibly, or getting a moratorium on. With agree with it or not, the big beautiful bill in California. Do you still get a credit for throwing solar on the home?
So right now, California credits have gone away. We did have a rebate program for batteries called SGIP, but that's starting to get sunset as well. I heard that the SGIP was actually going to be sunset according to CalSA, which is kind of like the watchdog that looks at the solar industry in California and the utilities. They've stated that it looks like that rebate program that was available is like gone at the end of the year. Tax credit wise. The federal government is sunsetting the 30% federal tax credit with a big beautiful bill or big ugly bill or whatever you want to call it, right? They
Yeah.
decided to just throw it off a cliff at the end of the year. Now, that being said, it might come back in a few years as administrations change. We don't know, right? But let's just say it's no longer available. Like, what do the economics really look like right now? We've been weighing this, and what we're seeing right now is it adds maybe 2 to 3 years to the total cost of ownership to reclaim your return if you're cutting a check for the system. It's really not that bad. Like it was 3 to 5 years, depending on the AHJ or like the utility that you were in, maybe 5 to 7 in others. But it adds maybe 2 to 3 years for that tax credit going away to when you get your money back. Because at the end of the day, the utility is always higher than producing energy on your own roof, traditionally.
Yeah.
Now, with the tax credits shifting, they're actually not completely going away. They're shifting from ownership to third party. So there's PPAs, power purchase agreements, leasing. It's becoming solar as a service, which is not necessarily a bad deal. It's not for everybody, but if you're looking for the lowest possible payment, that is the direction to go. If you're like, nope, I always own my stuff, that's the way I need to do this. There's some alternative third-party tax equity providers that are
Let me go
allowing
back
you
a
to get
little bit
it.
right there.
Have you
So
heard have you heard that?
as far as cheaper or most cost effective, comparing PPA to ownership,
Hmm.
you're saying power purchase agreement where you pay them essentially as your electrical vendor would be a little more cost effective than owning right now.
Right now, yes. Right now,
Okay.
yes. So if you're looking at if a payment is the primary factor, right, then basically the payments are about 18 to 22 cents per kilowatt hour under a PPA arrangement. So to give you an estimate on exactly kind of where that lands against Edison, Edison's in the 42 to 44 cents range, depending on what rate plan you're under. So
Mhm.
we're talking about approximately half versus the utility. So if you're looking at apples to apples from a comparison of payments, remember you're trading one service provider for another when you do a power purchase agreement or solar as a service. You're just switching it over. It's
Right.
easy as that. You'll still have a connection fee. There may be 20, 30, 40 bucks a month maybe left over from your utility side. But the idea is for you to lock in with a lower overall rate that usually moves at a predetermined amount versus SCEs, they'll skyrocket in a given year. If you want to purchase the system though and cut a check for it, that is always going to be the lowest like total cost of ownership if you're looking for a rapid like a return. So like for example, for probably your viewers, Justin, if you're looking at providing equity back into the home, now I'm not a licensed real estate agent and I'm not an appraiser. However, solar that is owned, correct me if I'm wrong, always gives some form of a return or an appraisal, correct?
Yeah, and I'll equate it to because I know some people, especially some people watching, they think like, oh, I threw a big ass solar system on, I spent 50 grand. You're not going to get that back. It's like doing an upgrade on your home, like say a pool or a kitchen.
Hmm.
It's not a dollar to dollar, or we can say, hey, let's bump up the price 20 grand because you have this. It's going to make it more appealing. So when we come time to appraisal and we have to justify that higher value, we can bring that to the appraiser. They have this solar system. This comp over here did not. This one didn't. Or if they're looking at a home around the corner and you have something that you're willing to pay off, the solar system, the people around the corner have a lease or a PPA. They're almost always going to go with the purchase one.
Yep. And it's
So
purchase one is definitely going to give you that higher the higher return and more warm and fuzzies, I guess. Now
yeah,
there is a flip side to that too, though. Is and from what I've seen here is if you purchase a system with battery storage today, $50,000, financing it's a little bit more viable, especially if you were able to claim the tax credit. Once it starts moving above that mark, and you have the interest rates that you have right now with solar loans, is in escrow, it gets a little bit dicier, especially the system being like a properly sized with multiple batteries. It might get dicier in that transaction because then somebody's going, well, I'm not taking on a 60 or $70,000 loan. We need to go ahead and pay that off. Now you can do that in escrow, but where a
mhm.
PPA might come ahead is that fact that there's no debt to income, right? Nothing in that regard. It doesn't show up on the credit, and you're not taking over a loan effectively when you do this. You're just transferring the service. So something that I've heard, Justin, and tell me, I want to hear your position on this, is in those situations, like, would you rather have a PPA in dealing with that in escrow, or would you rather have an own system if it's like a larger system with a loan?
Most people would go with the purchase system.
Hmm.
Reason for that, and I think it's because there's a lot of misinformation regarding solar. I've been doing this about 10 years. I don't, I've maybe talked to two people ever outside of either of our spaces that understood what a PPA even is.
Hmm.
So I think for a lot of people, it's a scary term. Like when I'm showing like new builds, when people see that they have to take on this solar payment, whether it's own, lease, PPA, they're factoring that into their payment. When I'm showing people resale and there's no solar, I've never heard them say, "Yeah, the electricity here though." Where
Interesting.
you're basically trading one for the other, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
utility to this company or utility to this company.
Yep.
But with solar, there's a lot more hesitance or reluctance to it.
Yeah, and it's true. When you're talking about a long-term agreement with a PPA, there is a little bit of like, hold on, I gotta take this on. I think one of the things that gets missed though in the PPA is that there is a we don't see the before cost, right? What that true
Yeah.
cost is of the energy. And if we were able to line those up together like side by side, and you're like, hey, okay, you do have to take this PPA on. However, the bill was $200 to $300 more per month. And by the way, this PPA now has a full whole home backup system incorporated, and it's covered under a 25-year agreement, they're about 5 years into this. So you only actually have to have it for 20. When you look at it, there is that value of like, okay, well, what was my savings factor? And if it was like 100 grand plus, and I got full home battery like storage, okay, cool. But to your point too, it's like, okay, yeah, but if I owned it, then I'm cash flowing every single month too. So again, I agree with you. It's like owning versus the leasing. Like it's not a one size fits all. And I think what we probably can agree on here though is the solar is usually an afterthought. Like they've locked in on probably the kitchen, the number of bedrooms, the master, things like that, right? Before they go, oh, okay, there's solar too. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, but yeah, to your point, yeah, it's 100% for most people. It's an afterthought. It's like I was saying, and I hope I'm explaining it right. It's your utility company's either going to be whatever Shaw, Power, Tesla, or it's going to be Edison. You're going to get a better rate with the first ones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
But it's
one of the things that you should watch out for is basically the installation. Like the companies have been going out of business kind of left and right, and I'm gonna throw out there as a cautionary tale of like out of 4 out of 10 have gone out of business. And a lot of people go, well, what do I do now? Well, if you own the system, it's pretty easy to just go find another provider that is certified on the hardware to go ahead, as long as it's name brand hardware, to go ahead and service it. It's kind of like if your water heater went out and the original person that installed it went out of business. You're like, well, what do I do? Oh, you just call somebody new.
yeah.
Under a under more of a PPA arrangement, it actually lives in the service agreement, lives with whoever effectively financed it. Like they're the owner. And we have seen some of these PPA providers like SunPower and Sonova and others just kind of take on a little bit too much, too big of a bite on the tax equity, hold the paper a little bit too long as interest rates went down, microeconomics, whatever you want to say. And they went out of business, but then another company came in and said, all right, I'm buying your assets and your list of business, because they had hundreds of thousands of paying customers. It was kind of like if a mortgage company got into trouble, well, another bank would be lined up on Monday by lunch to go ahead and buy them out, before anything could happen. So it's it's an interesting thing just to kind of consider when you're looking at both of them, is you're actually technically protected longer under a PPA, but it's just as
Mhm.
easy to get a service arrangement when you own it too.
So with a lot of these going, I didn't realize that many were going out of business. Is there investors lined up, like kind of gobbling them up, or like bigger solar companies like looking for these?
For the installers, no, because what's happening is we're seeing more of these. Some of these installation companies were just like electricians, right? They didn't really have they weren't classified as a solar company. Some of them are, or they were master resellers for a larger brand like SunPower. What we're seeing here is that they're kind of pivoting to want to work more in the landscape of where the financier takes the ownership. But there's plenty of businesses out there, especially locally, where they're like, no, no, I'll install it and I'll certify it for 10 years. You just That 10-year workmanship warranty, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because okay, are you going to be around in 10 years? It really comes down
Yeah.
to the solar manufacturer warranty that protects you at the end of the day, because those manufacturer warranties, like on a Tesla battery system, is 10 years. It's probably going to kick around for 12 to 15, but that warranty is good for 10, while the solar panel manufacturer is 25. And as long as you're buying from a reputable brand like Q Cells or REC, you're good. So to answer your question, no, not necessarily, but there are other companies that are coming in, like bailing out SunPower, Sonova, and others like that. So they're taking on their assets, such as GoodLeap is one. We've got LightReach, which is backed actually by like a Walmart fund. So we have these larger institutions, and there's always the big one, the big gorilla in the room, Sunrun, where their core business model actually is their financing arm. It isn't, and that's the reason why they push all their customers to PPAs. It's the most profitable side for them to do it, and they want to be around to actually, service it. They don't really want you to buy the hardware. So their primary function is a lease. If you ever run into those.
Okay, and that's kind of, I think that's most businesses when you look at in our world, the resale side versus the new builds. You walk into a new build, they're almost always going to get you to go with their lender, because they get to service that loan, they have the life of that loan. It's monthly. Like if you go to, Ford and buy a new car, they always want to push you to their financing side so they can keep all the, I don't want to say all the money in house because that sounds kind of greedy, but that's how they keep you as a customer for life.
Pays for
Is it
infrastructure.
is
It
it
pays for maintenance. Yeah, of course.
is that kind of is that pretty close to the solar side of it too? With you said that was Sunrun.
Yeah, well, that's any of the TPO, what we call the third party ownership or TPO providers. Your Sunrun, GoodLeap, and Lightreach are the big three right now. The ones that went out
And
of
then
business are SunPower, which just resurfaced out of Chapter 11, and Sonova.
so with their arm of business then, so are they kind of taking on like you have like the independent like solar consultants, which it seems like there's a lot of now, like smaller, and they kind of sell their work under that umbrella?
That's a good way to look at it. Basically, you're going to have a general contractor that does the work. So think of it like you have your builder, right? That's the GC, and then they have all the subcontractors that actually technically the trades that actually do build the actual house. However, they work with a financing arm, right, to get it done. So like they're going to
Yeah.
have the preferred lender in house, right? So when you walk in the door, they're going to get points, discounts, right? Things like that. 2-1 buy downs, things like that we're seeing in the industry, right? They're going to incentivize you to use their lender. Same thing kind of happens within the solar space. Is we have our preferred lenders, or there's a handful of lenders right out there that what they do is they finance these products. So like a SunGage, for example, their primary business is actually they're the largest loan provider now. GoodLeap, who's now they're getting out of the loan space. Then they have a mortgage arm to what they do too. But they're getting out of the loan space. They want to go more onto the third party ownership. So it's interesting to see it. Yeah, so you'll have a GC, a general construction company, that basically will do the installation, and then you will have the consultants that will utilize tools at their disposal, the current pricing that they have, and what we do at our team is we design a system and we properly size it, and then we will go ahead and we will make sure we'll send it out to the marketplace, if you will. What's the current rate today? Just like with a mortgage, almost. What is the price per kilowatt hour for this system size? So economics, right? Bigger the system goes, the lower the price per kilowatt hour effectively. Smaller it is, a little bit more expensive to build the whole solution. And the PPA providers will give us a cost back. If it's a loan or an ownership, of course, it's standard, right? It's you're taking out a loan for a purchase price, and this is what the payments are, just like a mortgage. Does that help you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's because it's solar is this whole trade that I mean really before like 10 years ago it wasn't really known. And with this technology becoming more and more beneficial, it's created all these different little side jobs underneath it, which is we just like on the consumer side we just see solar and then the rep, and then there's people installing it, and then a
These
loan
are
servicer.
These guys are have to be C10 licensed. You don't want me touching your battery pack.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
I don't
we I
touch
think we
electricity,
dived
so
into the next slide here, didn't we?
what's that? Oh
I
yeah.
think we dived into it.
Yeah, yeah, we got a lot of it. So own versus lease versus PPA. I think we've gone over that, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, I think we did.
Approvals and
Was there anything that you needed? Anything else you thought maybe beneficial?
on that side of it, no. I mean, just to touch on a bit real quick. Owned, you own it. Lease, you're leasing the system for a monthly fee, right? And then PPA, you're paying for actual usage.
Hmm. Yep.
Right,
Now,
okay.
something I want to hit on here is not all PPAs are structured the same. Same, just like how all loans aren't structured the same. And what you'll see out there is a lot of them have probably been sold, or as the interest rates went down. But there was a lot of loans that are out there that we had what we call high dealer fees. So just like buying down the loan, the rate, right, with a mortgage, there was a fee that was attached to the loan to get like a 1.99 or a 0.99 like lower rate when we had those types of interest rates. And usually it was somewhere between 20 to 30% fee of the actual system. And the finance companies don't always like us talking about it, but I don't care. I'll
Thank you
just
for
tell
that.
them, like
Yeah.
it's one of those things like, hey, well, that was the ugly thing. And then actually there was a Time article that came out talking about the solar bros, right, and what they were doing out there, just kind of calling out the bad actors, the bad apples. And what's happened there's a little bit of a cleansing when that happened, but the loans have also been cleansed as well. You're not really finding low interest rate loans traditionally. What I do want to say is a PPA isn't always a good PPA either. So like, just like it says, right, like, a good solar system helps the sale, about bad contract hurts it. You have an escalated PPA. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have a 2.99 PPA. And what I mean is that predeterminedly goes up almost 3% per year, because
Yeah.
the utility is up at least 6%. Maybe it's 9%. This year it was 13%, right? So you have these double digit increases with the utility. All a PPA does with a 2.99 is it front loads the savings. So if you're not going to be in the home for very long and you want to get maximum lowest payment, right, and get the maximum savings, that PPA is going to be good. What you want to look for, though, is something that blends that, whatever your goals are. Now, there's PPAs out there, and this is why I want to bring this up, just so you understand this, Justin, and everybody watching this understands. There's a new hybrid PPA that's out there, and it's framed around a 0% escalation. But what it really does is it actually gives you a nice low payment, because they're only charging you about 70% of what it's really worth. And what I mean by that is, it's there's only like one time that's really good. And so if you oversized a solar system in preparation for an EV, but you're not going to get it for 6 to 12 months, which hardly anybody does. Okay.
Mhm.
What ends up happening is, on paper, you're like, wow, I have this nice low payment. But in reality, they're only charging you for 70% of it. As soon as you tap in to needing the extra battery storage and system size, boom, it balloons. And it's only come out this year, and I've run across it twice. And it took me for I was like, wow, that looks too good to be. It was one of those, it looks too good to be true. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, it was too good to be true. And so one thing that our team does is they review like contracts, and we review things obviously for Nest and the team, and just other agents we work with for over 500. And that's one of the things that our team will do is, like, we'll spot and do a contract review to see if it's up to par, or if it'll be kind of a headache for you later.
Okay. Do you guys come across a lot that are, actually headaches or nightmares, or maybe worded kind of against the consumer, or
Um,
not in a favorable way?
not lately. Every now and again, you'll get that older PPA where the price per kilowatt hour is a little high, or like it was X number of panels, it just didn't match up. But what I found is that over time, the utility has always been ahead, right? So what would have been like, yeah, I could get a better deal today for that same $200 payment or whatever it is. It's nothing against what the utility's current rate is, and as long as it's
Okay.
less than what the utility is right now, you're still winning.
Yeah. So even though you might be a little behind to begin with, eventually you're going to come out ahead.
Hey, well, you come in. That's the nice thing about PPA is that it's like month one savings, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so your chances are you're already ahead of the game on it, especially if it's been in place
Yeah.
for multiple years.
Okay. One on here too that I wanted to ask about was resale complications. I don't really come across that too often on my side. Every now and then you get a company that's kind of crappy to work with, or maybe buyer just isn't getting with them quick enough. Is there any
Yeah.
complications that you see, or anything that anybody watching can do ahead of time to get themselves ready?
Yes. Any agents that are looking at listing a home or going in put an offer on a home, get the contract ahead of time for if it is a solar lease or PPA. If it's an own system, great. Just be ready for potentially a conversation to pay it off in escrow if it's got a loan attached to it. The one thing that I had seen as being kind of a pain was when it was when SunPower was going through their bankruptcy specifically. Was there was
Mhm.
so much new construction out there, so much like SunPower leases, that they were dealing with all of this, and escrows were like 30 to 45 days just because of that. Like that was the primary pain I saw, was within transferring. So again, win for owning it, right? But that was also like during a very interesting time that is not common either. So that would be the one thing that I would just like, if you're looking at it, get the contract, take a look at what the transfer eligibility is, see if there's a buyout clause. If there's a buyout clause on it to do, even if it's a prepay, which is better, by the way. If you do a prepay in escrow on that solar PPA, or right, that you still get used to the system. Somebody else owns it, but there's no payment. So you get a
Okay.
warranty for the remainder of the term, and there's no payment. A lot of times that buyout clause will say, okay, if you do this, then all warranties are on you, and all you did was prepay for the warranty and all of that ahead of time with no intention of using it, right? The service maintenance agreement, essentially.
Okay.
So something to have a look at.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, was there anything else we didn't cover that you would want to touch on, or any other interesting stuff going on in the solar space? We're at about an hour, so it's I
Yep.
do thank you
Sure.
for your time.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. The only thing I would say is this coming year is going to be very interesting as we shift, right, with what's happened within the landscape with tax credits. We are going to see more, like we're anticipating 80% of new ownership, or those getting solar, are going to shift towards a PPA structure, just because they're coming in with that, give me the lowest price, right? Um, the one thing that everybody should be aware of is, we're going to see probably the most outages we've ever seen this year, just because of what happened last year, and I hit on that. So something to watch is just to, if you're looking at going solar or thinking about it, right? It doesn't happen next week when you go solar. The fastest jurisdictions I see are like Temecula's pretty quick. Corona's like at like 3 weeks from their permitting process, like places like that. But if you're within Riverside County, it's going to take a few months. So if you are thinking about it, if you guys had a multi-day outage in the past, just feel free to reach out. Justin, can I drop my contact information on the live stream, on the comments, or anything like that?
I'll put it in the caption if you. I don't know. Can
Perfect.
you comment on there?
Yeah, yeah, I'll go ahead and I can comment on it. But I'd say,
Yeah,
like, if you just don't know who to
I'll put it
trust,
too.
just feel free to reach out. We're pretty straight shooters, if you didn't pick that up.
Yeah, I'll give you a little tire pump too. I mean, we've sent you people, and it's never pressure, and it's just strictly informational. Does this make sense? Does it not make sense? Cool. Is this better than what I have? Can I add on to what I have? And is it gonna, essentially save the
Mhm.
person money? Because that's the goal at the end of the day, right?
Yep, that's the goal. And if you're an agent too, like, and you're just trying to navigate this, and you have just have a system that you need help with, feel free to reach out too. We'll see what we can do as well for you. But we're here to help. We're definitely here to help.
Yeah, definitely. So cool with all that, and like I said, I think I told you before, these live forever. So I keep these pinned on my page. So
Cool.
I'll have all your contact information below. Anybody that wants to reach out to Jordan about just any random stuff about solar, or see if it makes sense for you, or if you're a realtor watching this and you're trying to help a client out, he'll look over your the contract, tell you what to watch out for, tell you what
Mhm.
to improve on, etc. But Jordan, again, thank you, man. I appreciate you jumping on. I know we
Appreciate it.
we went a while. I think I told you 30 minutes. We're at over an hour now.
That's
But
cool, man. I like having these candid conversations about it. This is the more information like this is out there is better for everybody, because then everybody gets like informed, and it's just better.
yeah, and I like doing these, and I appreciate people like you jumping on, and just keeping this more informational, and not like a sales pitch boiler room type type of thing. It's just more, this is what it is. This is what we do. If we can help you, we're here for you.
Yep, absolutely. And that's really what's behind just our company is, we started this just because we saw there was a lot of confusion and noise out there. It's like, what do I do? And we wanted to ensure both our homeowners and our partners that we work with, right? Just from our real estate agents to, even our, we have some business to business partners and like home improvement landscape, right?
Hmm.
Just understood that when they hand people over to us, that they're gonna get a good experience. I mean, I can tell you this, Justin, solar is not perfect, and anybody that tells you it is lying to you. Like, things come up, it's a construction project, but it's that's why you need to have a team like ours that's going to be there for the long haul. I just share a quick little story here, and I'll let you go. I literally, during this mad rush to get towards the end of the year for the tax credit, we had panels fall off the back of a truck. I
Um,
I've never had that happen before, dude, ever. We
yeah.
didn't put those panels on the roof, don't worry. But we had panels next day, next business day, on the doorstep for that installation. And that's why you got to work with our team because we can pull the strings. If something happens, I mean, our whole goal here is not to have a, like a unintended water feature in your living room, but
Yeah.
it's all
Jeez.
about it's
Yeah.
all about how you react when something like that doesn't go right. And because solar is a construction project, who you choose is definitely important, So anyway,
Yeah, and if anybody's worked with any contractor in any capacity, or you've had a bad contractor, you know how much more it's cheap on the front end, but those add-ons, those change orders,
where you
holy
get them
shit,
cheap,
they add up.
fast, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then you're without a kitchen for 2 or 3 weeks longer than you planned on, or whatever, and that
Right.
sucks,
Change order, change order, change order.
Yeah. But cool. Well, I'll wrap it
Cool,
up.
man.
Jordan, thank you
Thank you
again,
so
man.
much.
I appreciate you being on here. Anybody
Mhm.
has questions on this, I'll have his contact information below, or you can reach out to me directly. I'll be sure to link you guys up. Again, thank you for watching. I will catch you on the next one.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.